65 horsepower trap that might pop wide open, Reds.
Kansas City Chiefs absolute problem.
Welcome back in, everybody, to another episode of the TPT podcast. Alongside with me in the back in the chair is Zach. Zach, what's happening, my friend?
None much, man. Just got back into my house. I was locked out after I got back from the gym. And so I had to eat my Chipotle up the street at a neighbor's house. So I just got back in my crib.
You're going to get locked out. We didn't know if you were going to appear on the TPT podcast or you're going to be outside with a little microphone, trying to turn your camera on with a maybe a squeegee or something through the window. But you're locked in, because we're about to get locked into some Chiefs talk right now. Obviously, we missed you last week. We had a great conversation with Tyler Thigpen. You guys didn't watch that. You guys can still go watch that, because we get deep into the playoff picture, and it's still a lot of it applies to what transpired in the Patriots game. What we're really just going to be diving in today is what's going on with the Patriots game. We're going to talk about the man of the hour, Kadarius Toney. Then we're going to talk about the playoff picture. What's going on in the playoffs? Who's in? Who's out? Are the Chiefs still have a chance at that first seed? Do they not? We're going to get all into that today on the TPT podcast. But first, we're really just going to get into the Patriots game. Zach, as we dive right into it, what are just some of your initial thoughts coming out of that Pats game?
Hey, I feel pretty good because Mahomes really played well, I thought. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The O-line, yeah, against a pretty good defense. The O-line didn't look as stout as they should and usually do. Obviously, some of the receivers just sold. Like, Watson sold a little bit. Sky Moore sold a little bit. And then there's Toney, who just sold so hard. But Rice was amazing. And Rice was more than just a yak guy. He was also good catching the ball, no drops, 9 for 9 on targets. And he was also getting open. And the defense played well as well. We're used to that at this point. But I feel like Zappe really played well, especially in that first half. We would get pressure, and he would get the ball out just in time. And so that's nothing really against our defense, because it wasn't really a busted coverage or a lack of pass rush. It was more just Zappe getting the ball just in time into a good window. And so I'm really happy with the performance on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought maybe Zappe, it was like every time they were like that D line would be like right there, and then he would just like boom, he'd get out at the last second. But as soon as you see that in the first half, and that was kind of like how it was in the Bills game. Like, they were right there on Josh Allen. I was like, you're gonna get got. Like, once I see you almost getting got in that first half, it's like that just telling me their offensive line is like doing just enough. Well, later in the game, they're going to be like, okay, Chris, you can have this one, because like I tried the first half, like I'm gassed right now. So I knew, I was like, the defensive line is eventually going to get there. It was good to see Drew back out there for sure. I thought, he was everywhere, and Bolton and Willie Gay. Like, Willie Gay had the pick. You had Nick Bolton having huge stops in the run game, and you had just Drew just being that safety / linebacker out there. And that just shows when you have all three. And this is what I really wanted to get into, and it does apply to the Patriots game. Is like, let's not forget, like, some of the guys that were out last week. Like, we forget about that versus that Bills game. As bad as they played, plus some of the guys that were out versus a Bills team that's coming in hot. Like, this Chiefs team, yeah, it hasn't been fluent, but, like, this is a Chiefs team, like, this last game, once they kind of get their guys back, and they didn't even have Pacheco, which we're going to get into Clyde Edwards. Like, he's been dogged on, and we've done it on this podcast too, but there's a lot I got to say about Clyde Edwards and the game he had, especially, again, just when we needed a guy to go out there and perform. I'm going to get in that too, but just some of the guys that are able to come back and contribute, like you had Drew just being able to come in a game and boom, right back in. You had our offensive line kind of nicked up, being able to come into this game. They didn't play as well as they typically do. But like you said, the only concern I really had of this game, and we're going to get deeper into, is the receivers. But I thought the running backs played well. Some trickery on that play. You had Mahomes at fullback. I thought that was interesting. But like the number one thing was Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice right now he may be the best rookie wide receiver. I know Jordan Addison has a little bit more yards and I think one more touchdown, but he's second in touchdowns for
Puka.
And he's
Puka.
And Puka Nacua too. I know Puka Nacua has been kind of
Puka's up here, but Rice is firmly like in that conversation for second.
And I will say it. You have Puka Nacua. I know Puka Nacua has cooled off a little bit, and again, Puka Nacua is getting the yards. But if you want to talk about a guy getting it done in the red zone, and again, making the most of what, the opportunities get, because let's remember, you still have a guy like Travis Kelce who's the number one in the offense. Obviously, you have a guy like Cooper Kupp, but Cooper Kupp hasn't been around most of the season. But just from a pure value standpoint, what Rashee Rice has meant to the Chiefs, because if we didn't have him, I mean, my God, where would we be? So, but shout out Rice. Rice, absolutely great game. Big Ten game. The Chiefs just needed that. It was a win you needed. Now, obviously, they got the Raiders and the Bengals and the Chargers. But, I mean, right now, just, from this win, there's a lot of things that can kind of go to the Chiefs' way the rest of the season. But I thought the Chiefs came out and had a great game.
Yeah, and I know this isn't a fantasy podcast, but all I know is next year I'm getting Rice in all the drafts I can get. Because if you think about how many touchdowns he has, on top of the fact that our offense is underperforming, on top of the fact that how many times has he gone down at the one? I remember I think it was in that Chicago Bears game, or maybe, I think the Chicago Bears game. He was at the one twice. And he already has, is it 6 or 7 touchdowns?
Yeah, I think he's been down at the one 3 times. I know he did it twice for Chicago and one versus Denver.
Yeah. He's a beast in the red zone. He's exactly what we need, especially with our red zone offense like being as streaky as it is as of recent.
Yeah, and I think this is the Chiefs, and I've seen a couple people say this. I forget who said it on Fox. I think the Chiefs right now coming out of this game is, it may sound crazy, but they need to almost just continue to pass the ball more. If you can just, and I know it sounds crazy, but and Sky Moore, he just got put on the injured reserve, so it'll be curious to what they do if they bring in Justin Ross, which I think they probably will. They'll probably bring him up. But this is where you have to try to find, if you're going to have to almost force feed MVS and Justin Watson, I would say Kadarius Toney, but I'm saving that for later, rant, because I need my blood pressure to be low. But you almost have to force feed these guys just so they go into the postseason with just a little bit of confidence. If you can get, we already know Rice is he's on top of the world. We don't got to worry about that. Rice, and you still got Travis Kelce, who's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. Those guys are at the top of the world. Clyde looks like he's got his mojo back a little bit, going up and catching. You see, like he was telling Mahomes, hey, I can catch the damn ball. You throw me the ball, I'm going to come down with it. He had one of the best catches we've seen probably since last year in Tampa when he threw that little pass to Clyde as well. So you got Clyde, who's kind of had his confidence. Jerick McKinnon has a passing touchdown, and he's kind of getting in the screen game as well. And then all of a sudden, if you bring back Pacheco, before he got injured, was top 5 in rushing. So I think things are starting to gel a little bit after this game. And you always see that from the Chiefs late in season after those hiccups. They always have that one game that kind of, gets the juice flowing. And I know, honestly, there was a chance at the end of the game for them to go score again. And you had another chance in the red zone. But again, you had a guy like Kadarius Toney with the interception. So I think there was opportunities obviously missed for them to go probably put up 40 points on this Patriots team. Now you go play a Raiders team that's a little bit better than the Patriots. But what did you take away from just Patrick Mahomes in this game and moving forward for the Chiefs?
It instilled some confidence in me, for sure, because Mahomes looked in control. There were lots of free rushers that I noticed, not just on the outside blitzes, but also on the interior. And Mahomes got sacked more than he normally gets sacked, but he just looked more in control. And it looked like he wasn't always panicking and trying to make something that isn't there, that he's been doing in recent weeks because of his lack of trust with his receivers. Rice is that guy. Okay, Rice is like we said earlier in the season, he's kind of like a receiver Kelce, where he's really good against the zone, and hopefully as the season progresses, he'll build that chemistry where he can find those spots in the zone and Mahomes can look for him like they had on that game. And so I'm just really excited because that game looked like a more comfortable Mahomes. I didn't see any frustration until maybe that Tony interception. Mm-hmm. Like even when Justin Ross had dropped that back shoulder ball that he threw, there just wasn't much like frustration. We really could have put up, like you said, maybe 37, 40 points. We missed a field goal, kneeled the ball there. And then
mention that.
And also just, I don't want to say, like we always say the mistakes might not go away at this point, but we made a lot of mistakes in that second half that kind of stalled drives where we should have been able to get points. And so as long as our quarterback is looking like his old self, is looking like the elite two-time MVP, two-time Super Bowl MVP, which I felt like he looked similar to that yesterday, I think we're in good hands.
Yeah, and one guy, I think, where they kind of got involved a little bit more, and there's at times where you don't see these big winding plays and they're trying to look downfield. They did have that a good pass to Watson. I really just, like I said, I think they need to try to force feed these guys, even if it's just anything they can do, throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage to Watson, to Richie James. I think they really do need to get a guy like Richie James involved more. He had 600 yards in a non-passing offense last year. He was almost the leading receiver for the Giants last year. And now he's with a guy like Mahomes. I do think they need to try to find Richie James. I don't know if Mahomes just doesn't have that trust with him yet, but I think they do need to find ways to get Richie James the ball more, because I really think Richie James can be a big part of this offense when you have guys like MVS not producing, or now that we have Sky Moore on IR, where who are you going to go to now? Who's going to take those reps now? And you have and let's get into it. You have to bench Tony. Tony has to go get benched. There's only so many more chances you can keep giving a guy. I know, that the Chiefs aren't going to probably do it. They're probably not going to do it. They're continuously going to say we're going to trust the guy. But how many more chances are you going to give a guy? You have to sit him down. There's got to be another receiver you have out there that can take these reps. Like, he's hurting the team. There's no ifs and buts about it. He's doing more worse for the team than he is good.
But Jayden, let me ask you this, okay? You said there's got to be someone that could take these reps away, but there really is not. There is not, and I am still for benching Tony, not really benching, but lowering his usage to more like his first few weeks coming back, like weeks 3, 4, and 5, when I was screaming for him to get more play time. Maybe go back to that like 9% snap count, have him in there when he can be dynamic. I like when he lines up in the backfield because no one knows what's coming then. And then have him be a punt returner like he's so good at. Instead of Richie James has done fine over the last few games for sure. Right. But if Tony's not going to be getting these reps at receiver, we don't need to worry as much about his health. And we can put him back there where he's a dynamic punt returner. And then he can be that last receiver on the depth chart where we bring him in for ways where he can be dynamic. But I'm seeing lots of people call for his head like he should never even see the field again. He's still a dynamic player. He just does not have it as a wide receiver.
Yeah, no, I agree. But my thing is just when you have a guy where, again, you have the drop passes versus Detroit, you have some of the sloppy play in Green Bay, then you have the Bills game. Now you have, again, the Patriots game where you see after that play, you have Mahomes coming back to the sideline just cursing and upset. And just, again, I think at that point would I rather see a guy like Justin Ross out there? I know he's been away, not in games for a while, but would I rather just see a practice squad guy, literally anyone else that is not going to cause an interception or a third down when he's open, when he's open to just drop the ball. I mean, he had 2 drops, 5 yards, and a caused interception yesterday. Yep. He's doing harm for the Chiefs.
I've never seen a receiver who has that stat line so common. And it includes like a game-changing. Like, if we're lucky we're going against the Patriots yesterday, because if we're going up against any other team, we aren't a team on offense where we can afford to give up field position like that and give up a touchdown like that and still have a good chance to win. And so we're lucky it was New England, because if that happened in the Buffalo game, I know something similar happened with the Rice fumble. But if that happened in the Buffalo game, we're losing by more than we did against Buffalo. But one thing I want to say, early in the season, remember when Smith Marset was going off in preseason? He was going crazy. Now, of course, I just overreact to everything in preseason. Like, I thought Rice was a bust off the rip. But I thought Smith Marcel was the second coming. So when we traded him to Carolina, I was just bummed out. Like, we're gonna need him because if you look at the other guys on the roster, there's nothing there. But he hasn't done much in Carolina, so I can't say I was right. But I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. Then I've seen a lot of teams say, what about Amir Marset? But again, he hasn't done much in Carolina anyway. But I mean, at this point, I'll take anybody. I'll take my cousin out there as long as he just is not causing interceptions. But with another guy down, it's like you may see just Kadarius Toney still out there because you have Sky Moore who's out. Who are they going to bring in at that other receiver position? Do they activate Justin Ross and bring him back? And like I said, I know he was suspended and he was away from the team for 6 games. And he hasn't really played since that Minnesota game, or I think that game after Minnesota, week 6 is it? He hasn't really played since week 6, so they may not go that route. But I would like to see someone else there. I want to see Richie James get the ball. I really do. I feel like all these quick passes, Richie James is doing pretty good. And again, when Mahomes is getting the ball out more fluent, like he was yesterday, I think the Chiefs are going to be in business. Let's be real. There is still a path for the Chiefs. I don't want to sit here every week and just be like, the Chiefs lost and it's just a negative Nancy show and, the Chiefs, it's just their receivers suck. Oh, no, it's been bad. Like, it has been bad, but you still have Kelsey, you still have Pacheco, like you still have these guys who Pacheco's, supposed to come back next week. I'm still going to sit here and I still think the Chiefs can make some noise and potentially be a Super Bowl team. It's just they just have to eliminate the turnovers for these next 3 games. When you're going into a game, Oakland is still a team that I can still make the playoffs, but they want to spoil the Chiefs season. Of course, they're not Oakland. I keep saying Oakland. The Las Vegas Raiders. Keep saying Vegas. Not the Oakland Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders want to spoil the Chiefs season. And again, sort of the Chargers probably that last week of the season. But, if you have a team like Baltimore, and which we're going to kind of get into the playoffs, you have a team like Baltimore that has to go play the 49ers, and they still have to go play the Dolphins, and the Dolphins have to play the Ravens. So you have the Dolphins or the Ravens are still going to have one more loss. It really comes down to, can the 49ers beat the Ravens, and can the Dolphins lose to the Cowboys? If that's the case, the Chiefs still can win the first seed. They can go get the first seed. If you have the Miami Dolphins lose to a team like Buffalo, who's hot, or a team like the Dallas Cowboys, there's your Chiefs first seed right there. One of the Miami Dolphins or the Baltimore Ravens have to lose a game. And then it comes down to, can a team like the 49ers, who are the best team in football, can they beat the Ravens? So I think there is a huge path for the Chiefs to get the 1 seed. It really depends on the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, and after, I was hoping Dallas could keep Buffalo out. Like, yesterday, I was rooting hard for Dallas. I'm rooting for everything that keeps Buffalo. I was rooting for the Texans to win, which ended up happening. I was rooting for the Browns to win, which ended up happening. And then all Dallas had to do was just beat a team that they're supposed to beat. They just did that. So, I don't really want to put much faith in those NFC teams anymore because same with Cincinnati and San Francisco earlier, they just let me down. So, I'm done with that. If we fall backwards in the 1 seed, that's great, okay? But we gotta these are weak wildcard teams. As long as we don't get Buffalo, we should be in that divisional round and hopefully win a home game. And so, and the thing about Buffalo being a wildcard, if we don't match up against them, and they happen to win their wildcard game, if they beat Miami or if they beat Baltimore or Jacksonville, which I think they could, then we are having a divisional round opponent that's another wild card team, or like maybe Jacksonville. And then if Buffalo goes to the 1 seed after that, since they were a wild card team that won their divisional round, I see a better path for us getting a home field advantage AFC Championship. But the 1 seed, that's a lot to ask for, especially with us needing 2 losses this weekend.
Yeah, and that's my thing. It's possible they can get the 1 seed, but let's be real. If the Kansas City Chiefs have to go play, and right now at the season ended, they'd have to play a team like the Bengals in the playoffs. I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes over Jake Browning. I don't care who they got over there at receiver. We've seen Snead shut down from Justin Jefferson to Garrett Wilson to even holding AJ Brown, stuff on Diggs. Like Jake Brown playing some good football, but if the Chiefs have to go play Jake Browning in a wild card round, I'm going to take the Chiefs.
Yep.
I'm not going to sit there because he had a nice little game versus the Minnesota Vikings and Nick Mullins. I'm okay with that. If it's the Indianapolis Colts, I know we haven't had the best of luck versus them in the playoffs, but I'm still going to take Patrick Mahomes over Minshew and those guys over there. And like you said, there's a scenario where, a team like the Bills still need a lot to happen. They're the 9th seed right now. They still have a couple teams in front of them. If they lose a game, I don't think they make the playoffs. They have to win out plus have 2 teams lose. They have to win out plus have 2 teams lose just for them to make the 7th seed.
Yeah, luckily for them, next week Cleveland plays Houston. Those are 2 teams. Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh plays Cincinnati. Those are another 2 teams that are ahead of them. And then in week 17, I know the Bengals play the Chiefs. So the thing is, it's really they have to. The thing that the Bills are looking at is the Bengals. They're looking at the Bengals because if you remember, the Bengals beat the Bills. So even if the Bengals end up losing to Kansas City, not this week but the week after on New Year's Eve, right? That'll make them and we're assuming the Bills win, right? And they both have the same record going into week 17. The tiebreaker still goes to the Bills, and then you still have where the Texans. Again, they have the tiebreaker over Cincinnati. So then you still have that piled where they would still be the 9th seed or the 8th seed looking out. And you saw the Texans, if they had the same record as the Cincinnati Bengals, they're still ahead of them in general. So it's still a lot for the Bills to happen for them to get into the playoffs. Yeah, true. It's just kind of disappointing that we're not done with this conversation yet. I thought the last 2 weeks would end this conversation, especially yesterday, but we're still having this conversation. Yeah,
and like I said, the Bills, they're obviously a team where the Chiefs have had success. They're 3-0 versus them, or 3-0, I'm pretty sure, in the playoffs versus them.
2-0, yeah.
4 or 5 years. But they're still a team where, again, they have weapons. And, like I said, if you have a team like the Chiefs having to go play a team like Buffalo in the playoffs where you have Pacheco back, you have Drew back, you have Donovan Smith back. I would like my odds. I would absolutely like my odds. Obviously, the Chiefs, have to finish these last 3 games out. What do you think the toughest opponent for the Chiefs, though, these last 3 games is? You have a divisional rival in the Raiders and the Chargers, then you have the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, it's definitely the Bengals. It's definitely the Bengals. And I don't think they're not tough by our standards of who we normally end up playing at this time of year. Because obviously they're missing Joe Burrow. But it's mainly the Chargers are without Herbert, the Chargers are probably the worst team in the league, honestly. Mm-hmm. And then the Raiders are the Raiders, and we just own the Raiders. Like, not much to talk about there. We know how to score points against them. We know how to score points against them better than probably any other team in the league. And so it's the Bengals. Their defense is starting to come around. It had been slacking, at least compared to what it's been in recent years. And then Browning's playing well, but again, weak offensive line, backup quarterback. We should handle them, and we should win out.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are saying, like, oh, you can't underestimate each opponent. If they play remotely close to how they played, even the last 2 games, you can say, well, Jayden and Zach, they lost to the Bills. They did. But, again, minus someone being offsides and an egregious interception by Mahomes. You can say even count the Rice fumble, right? When they were crossing the 50-yard line. They were moving the ball almost every single drive in that second half. And then Rice had to go and fumble. But even if you take away Mahomes' just stupid interception, who knows if the Chiefs go down there and score. And if you go look at, the Eagles game, all these games the Chiefs have lost in close games, they've been right there. They've been right there. And we know, again, unexperienced quarterbacks like Browning, like O'Connell, and like Easton Stick, these guys are going to do stupid things. They're going to take sacks they shouldn't. They're going to try to fit in the windows they shouldn't. They're not, again, Mahomes can have the interception, but also we know some point in that game he's going to make up for it. That's the difference between Mahomes and these type of guys in the late game. And you can say, yeah, but they still got Jamar Chase. They still got these guys. Yeah, but they also just lost DJ Reader. And that's a huge part of how they stop the run versus teams. That's a huge part on why teams aren't able to set a play action. A huge part on why teams aren't able to just kill them on short down yardage. So, I think the Bengals, and we don't even know if Jamar Chase is fully healthy. We know he left that Vikings game. But like I said, I love the Chiefs' odds these last 3 games. Even if they get the second seed, which the Dolphins are going to, the Dolphins or Ravens will lose one more game. They will, 100% because they play each other. So if the Dolphins lose, you'll end up getting the second seed. You end up having to play that 7 seed if that's the Colts, the Bills, the Houston Texans, and Arrowhead. I like my odds. But as we talk about these last 3 games, as we kind of wrap up the show, is what are the top 3 things, the Chiefs going forward can do to just get back on track and just put up those points like we did? Because we know if they can get 24 or more points from here until if they're playing on February 11th, they can win a Super Bowl with this defense. But how do they do that?
Well, I'm probably sounding like a broken record at this point, but turnovers, and a part of it is just very untimely turnovers, especially untimely turnovers,
right.
Red zone turnovers at the beginning of the fourth quarter when we're driving on a team. I feel like those are the only turnovers we commit outside of like Mahomes' turnover against the Bills. It's always a wide receiver or Travis Kelce fumble when we're finally picking up some momentum against a good team. I feel like that's the most common type of turnover we have. Happened last year with Travis Kelce against the Bengals, happened with Travis Kelce earlier this year, and then happened with Rashee Rice. And so just limit those. It's football. Turnovers are going to happen, but the rate at which we turn the ball over in big games in the second half is just insane. Like, I don't see stuff like it. It's not even just like bad throws and stuff. It's like fumbles and very fluky things. And so limit the turnovers and then continue to get Rashee Rice the ball, because when he gets the ball, good things just happen. And he's finally developing other parts of his game that make it a lot easier for us to give him the ball. Early in the season, we were basically having to force feed him screen passes and quick little stuff like that because he couldn't get open and he wasn't great contested catch. He's finally developing other parts of his game, and the more we get him the ball, the more our offense is going to score points.
Yeah, that's the main thing is imagine if you can have where the Chiefs aren't having the interceptions, having the fumbles, like, again, the year prior where we weren't doing that, how many more of those can turn into points? And again, I know it hasn't been perfect with receivers, but Rashee Rice has been great. Pacheco has been phenomenal. And, of course, Kelce has been phenomenal. And if you look at this AFC, you can say, well, if you shut down Rice, you can kind of just, that's it kind of for the Chiefs. So you can shut down Kelce. Well, just shutting down Kelce is hard. But, again, what team in the NFL, obviously they haven't played the Ravens, right? The Chiefs have played all the top teams in the AFC besides the Ravens, correct? They beat the Dolphins. They beat the Jaguars. The Bills aren't a playoff team, even though they lost to them, right? Those aren't a playoff team as we speak. What else more? Besides, obviously, we lost the Eagles, but they're right there with the Eagles the entire game. There's no way you watch, and this is my thing, there's no way you watch the Bills game, you watch the Eagles game, and you go, oh, the Bills are way better than the Chiefs. The Eagles were way better than the Chiefs in that game. No, shot. They majority of that game, especially in the second half versus the Bills game, the Chiefs were the better team. The Chiefs were the team. The Eagles game, they damn sure were the better team until the halfway through the third quarter, and then it was just a complete collapse because they couldn't score in the second half. But that's my thing about the Chiefs is if they, I think you nailed it on the head, if they can just get rid of the turnovers, just the turnovers. I know, the drop passes and all that, yeah. Their defense is fine. Like, their defense will make up for the stupid passes, the stupid drop passes and all that because we've seen it. Like, we've literally seen them still be in games with the bullshit, like dropping the pass. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if they can just get rid of the turnovers, this team can make an absolute deep run no matter who they play in the playoffs. Would you agree?
Yeah, and the thing about the turnovers is not even leaving points on the board for us. Like, we can win with the amount of points we have at that point. We can win with 21 points. We can win with even 17 points in some matchups. It's the fact that we're giving it to them in our territory, and then they have a free touchdown and they steal the momentum because teams aren't going down the field on us and scoring touchdowns I feel like they sometimes do on the first drive, and then we just stall them the rest of the game until something like that happens. And so I wouldn't even say it's us leaving points on the board with our own turnovers. It's more just giving them great field position, which when you have this is the blueprint that teams with strong defenses have followed. They don't go crazy doing all this stuff that could potentially lead to turnovers. They play conservative. They get points where they can get them, and they protect the ball. And that's how you win when you have a team with this good of a defense.
1,000% teams, and I'm so glad you said that, is teams play the Chiefs scared. No one takes shots on the Chiefs. When did you see Josh Allen airing it out versus the Chiefs? He did it because Snead and McDuffie have played beautiful football. Teams like to check it down, and they try to get people to miss. That's it. When did Jalen Hurts had 7 screens in a row at one point? They started on the 5-yard line, and they did almost 7 screen plays in a row. Or I should say, they checked it down behind the line of scrimmage 7 times in a row.
And that's not their offense. That's not their offense at all. They play different when they're playing us.
And again, teams play scared versus the Chiefs. When do you see a team just get 15, 20, 30 yards on the Chiefs? They don't. They try to get there, just get close 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1. Let's try to just get a run here. Teams play the Chiefs scared because, again, the way their defense has been playing. But the problem is with the Chiefs is when the Chiefs get it, like you said, it's the turnovers. They get it, and then they get it to the 50. They turn it over. They let that team go out, and then even if it's a field goal, then it's like, damn, we could have just been up by 10. Now instead we're only up by 6 points. Even though we could have been up by 10 or we could have been up by 13. But now we're only up by 6 because we just gave up a touchdown. And then boom, then they tie the game. Now they have the momentum. And same with Mahomes' interception. They only scored in that Buffalo Bills game. What was the score? It was 20-17. 21-17. They scored 2 touchdowns having to go the length of the field. The other one, what happened? Mahomes said, I don't want it. There you go. And where was it? It was on the 45-yard line. So, boom, they got that quick touchdown. So we have to put that in perspective. Teams are typically not going to look at what just happened in the Patriots game. Where did one of their touchdowns happen? Off of a what? Off of an interception. Mahomes throwing it right to the guy and ripping it away from Blake Bell. Boom, their teams are really only scoring. When the Chiefs kick it off to them, and they have to go when they have to start from the 30, teams are typically only scoring 2 touchdowns and maybe a field goal. They really are. But the Chiefs have found ways to turn over the ball, just like the fumble in the Bills game, where they're giving teams short porches. That is the biggest thing to me, is they're just giving teams short porches. The way our defense is playing, if the Chiefs can get to 24 or more points a game in these playoffs, I think they can get back to a Super Bowl. I think this team could go toe-to-toe even with a team like the 49ers team, just because you have a Brock Purdy over there. But again, it comes down to turnovers.
Yeah, we held New England to. I know their offense is bad, okay,
right?
But Zappi played. He threw the ball well most of the time, and then he made good decisions most of the time. And we still averaged. We kept him to an average of 4 yards per play. That's like nothing. And we had pressure the entire game. It finally helped at the end of the game where we started to force sacks and got a turnover off that interception. But with this defense that we have, we just need to not give free points. And if we don't give free, if you think about the games that we haven't done that, we've won those games. Mm-hmm. When we think about we have 5 losses this year. Let's think about those losses. Okay. Kadarius Toney pick 6 first game. Okay. What's next? Then we didn't lose for 7-8 weeks because we were having an even turnover margin with the other team. And then we lost to, was Philadelphia our second? No, Denver. That was just bad. I don't even remember what happened that game. That game
5 turnovers. 5 turnovers.
We had 5 turnovers. See, okay, I that game was wiped from my memory. 5 turnovers. Yeah, you're not going to win that game. You're not going to win that game.
5 turnovers and lost by 10.
Yep. Philadelphia. What did we do? Hey, honestly, the losses, they're gone. And then we lost. Drops, yep. And then we lost to, was Buffalo the next one? No, there's another one.
Green Bay.
Oh. Yeah, no, that was trash.
Over and drop passes.
I'm a lot better at talking about wins than losses, honestly. Like, losses...
Hey, you got to get them out of your memory.
It's so weird.
But again, it's been... And that's what the margin of error... And I'm so sick of turning on the TV and people are acting like it's like... And Devin McCourty said this great on NFL Network. He's like, we talked about the Chiefs a week ago or 2 weeks ago where it's just like, they had a good year. It's like the margin of error for them has been like the receivers has played terrible. If the receivers play this much better, like not like this, not like that, not like where it's like, oh, if MBS can have 100. No, if they do this, if they can catch a third down pass, like the Chiefs would be have 2 losses maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe Denver and Green Bay.
If we drop 2 passes,
a chance to win the game versus Denver, and he dropped the pass.
If we drop 2 passes per game instead of like 3, think about how big every single drop is. It seems like every drop comes at the worst possible moment. Mm-hmm. It's always to move the chains, or leads to a pick, or is like a crazy throw at the end of the game that just gets dropped. Right. Like, we have the most untimely turnovers and drops that, honestly, the fact that we're 9-5, like, watching this Chiefs team is just honestly hilarious. Like, the more we lose, the less, like, I found myself, like, missing plays yesterday. I never miss plays. I know we won the game, but I don't miss plays during Chiefs games. I'm there. I use the restroom in 10 seconds and go back to the game. But I was missing plays, and I just was wondering, like, this team just is – it's so confusing how we just managed to mess so much stuff up in the wrong times.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like if they would just have what would our conversation be if it was just one thing changed? Not where it was like, man, if we had a defense or if we had if a guy caught a pass, that should give Chiefs confidence. Where it's like, okay, yeah, I know the guys haven't been able to do it, but it's like, if we go in the playoffs. And that guy just catches a pass late in game versus this team again. Or if Mahomes doesn't throw a just uncharacteristic interception, that should give me a confidence to be like, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. Out of all the teams that are going into the playoffs late in the season, who has been there, who has had it, and now you have a top 5 defense for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career? Like, come on. So I think the Chiefs are going to be okay. Obviously, yes, we can be negative at times and feel like the sky is falling. But again, some of the things I like, what Tyler Thigpen was saying last week was just like, you have had the same group of guys even from last year. If they can kind of look in the room and be like, hey, this is the same team as last year. We know what we did last year. And that's a huge part. So when you get into December football, when you get into late in the season, when you get into the new year in the playoffs, and you're like, wait, we know what we did last year with this group. These guys over there don't know what they do. They haven't been where we've been. We know we can do it. There's that's sitting in the back of their mind where it's like the uncertainty. This Chiefs team know they've done it with literally almost every single one of these guys, minus a couple of rookies. So I just think the Kansas City Chiefs, they can win out and let the chips fall where they may. They got the Patriots game done. Obviously, they got the Raider week coming up. What is your main goal going into just this next game, just for some of these players? And like I said, do you think it's time? I'll ask, or you can answer us at the end. That they bench Kadarius Toney?
Okay, like I said earlier in the podcast. Okay, this Toney guy, he has a lot more talent than these guys, these so-called replacements that are gonna be as good as he is. Okay, he has a lot. He might be the most shifty guy in the NFL at the current moment. He has a knack for big plays in the punt game. We've seen that. We saw it in the Super Bowl, and we saw it earlier in the season when he had, what game was it where he had 4 very impressive punt returns? Mm-hmm. I don't remember what game, but he did it, okay? So maybe his role is maybe like not Taysom Hill, but just like a Taysom Hill-esque player where he comes in for certain situations, but we don't need to expect him to be an every down player. He can be a player that gets us big plays when we need a spark, and he can be our punt returner. And that's fine because he can provide value like that. He provided value in the Super Bowl, catching 1 pass and having 1 punt return because he's that big of a big play player. And so, yeah, bring his snaps back down like 9-10%. Bring him in on plays where we need something, or if there's a trick play that we have in mind, Otherwise, keep him at punt returner.
Yeah, I agree. I think you may have to just, on the depth chart, bring him down a little bit. Just give Richie James, Richie James and Rashee Rice more of the workload. Obviously, Sky Moore, he'll have injury reserve, and Noah Gray too. Let's not. And I didn't talk about Clyde. Hell of a game from Clyde. I know I talked about it a little bit. Hell of a game from Clyde Edwards. 100 total yards. Maybe we get him going more on the screen games and short passes, stuff like that. But I would like to see Noah Gray too, because I thought he had some good. You still got Watson. Maybe you got to feed him a little bit more and bring him up more on the depth chart. But yeah, I think the Chiefs will be okay. I like some of the vibes going into Raiders week. And again, these teams now that they're playing, this is confidence. This is how you build your Justin Watsons. You build your Kadarius Tonys. It's like, with all due respect, the Raiders, you should go out there and beat convincingly. You should. You really. It's Aiden O'Connell. You should. This is where you have to get. And I thought they should have used at the end of the game when they got the ball back on the 5-yard line to use that as a confidence booster. Get Kadarius Toney on a sweep into the end zone for a confidence booster. I really thought they should have done that. I know, some of the people were saying that too. But yeah, this has got to be a week where you kind of get the confidence going for a lot of these guys and feed some of these guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, what you would like to see in this game versus the Vegas Raiders. I think I said the Oakland Raiders about 20 times. Vegas Raiders. Let me know what you guys think. Zach, any last words as we close this Monday edition of the TBT podcast?
Yeah, I'm excited for Raider Week. It's Raider Week, right?
Yeah, Raider Week.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Raider Week, it's
on Christmas Eve.
Wow, it's that close to Christmas? Oh my god.
It's already Christmas, man. Already Christmas. I hope you're asking Santa for some wide receivers catching the ball and a Chiefs Super Bowl in your stocking.
No, I'm asking for a nightstand.
A nightstand?
A nightstand, yeah. I need a nightstand.
He needs a nightstand. So Santa, head down to IKEA so you can get this man a nightstand. Then he can have his Super Bowl trophy on the nightstand.
Yeah.
Because the Quincy Chiefs got to get rolling versus the Vegas Raiders. But yeah, we will see you guys later in the week on a Friday edition of the TBT podcast. We're going to try to get some more guests on here, some more fans. During the playoff, guys, we like to get every single fan of each team in the playoffs. So you may see some repeat people we had on the podcast during playoff time last year. Some Eagles fans, some Cowboys fans, some Niner fans, and maybe some Vikings fans back. Some one of our guys, Dustin, who does Best Bets. Make sure you guys, of course, go check out Best Bets. I made a little bit of money from Best Bets this last weekend, so make sure you guys go check that out. But we will see you guys next time on the TBT podcast. Thank you for watching the TBT podcast. Make sure you go check out all of our latest videos and follow us on all social media. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the TBT podcast.